Welcome to Uncaged, a show that celebrates thought leadership from today's top business leaders. The program provides a voice to amazing executives from around the globe who are shaping the world of business today and mapping the path to the commerce of tomorrow. Today, we're speaking with Karishma Warr. Karishma, how are you?
I'm good, Ben. Nice to see you. How are you doing today?
I'm very, very well. I'm very excited to talk to you about your business. Karishma is the co-founder as well as the head of training and behavior for the Calm Canine Academy. She is doing digital or virtual training of your pet, of your canine. And so we'll talk a bit about how she's built that business and how she does that. I'm very excited to learn. But before we get there, Karishma, tell us a little bit about yourself and your career.
So I started training dogs 7 years ago now, and it was quite traditional. I worked in one of the biggest dog training institutions in Manhattan in New York, and I worked there for 4 years. You know, your standard, people would bring me their dogs and I'd train them and then I'd give them back. And I did a little bit of teaching folks how to train dogs as well. And over those 4 years working in New York, I saw a few issues with the way that things were going. I saw our profession very much as treated as a service profession, which didn't ultimately help the dogs or the people. And I would bring a dog back perfect, and in 2 weeks it'd get messed up again. And I was like,
well, I can imagine. I mean, look, I lived in New York for about 20 years, and I can tell you, I remember seeing those dog walkers. So where they'd have like the 20, 25 dogs. Those dogs never seemed very happy, you know?
Oh, no. They absolutely are not happy.
Yeah.
But it does pose a question and kind of highlights how challenging it can be in an urban environment for our dog guardians, especially somewhere like New York. We always say it was like trial by fire coming up as a dog trainer in Manhattan. And I specialized very early on in anxiety and aggression with our pet dogs, which in Manhattan, as you can imagine, there's kind of an epidemic of aggression and anxiety of humans and dogs, I think. Well, that's what happens when you put a bunch of animals in and shake them up in a little island. And the communication wasn't what it needed to be. So sorry, you're going to get a little cameo from my puppy Ash here.
Okay, Ash, how are you doing? So Karishma, I mean, clearly that background experience in New York definitely shaped where you're going with this new venture. Tell us a little bit more about the creation of Calm Canine Academy and what you guys are up to.
Yeah, so we started Calm Canine Academy, or CCA, about must be almost 3 years ago now. Thank you, buddy. And it was a natural progression for me in my career, wanting my own business, to do things my own way. And about 6 months in, the pandemic hit. And that really forced us to change everything about how we treated and worked with dogs and their humans. And at the beginning, I was furious. I was like, I'm not doing virtual training. I see all of these people doing it. I'm not doing it. It's not going to work. Absolutely not. And my colleagues were like, Karishma, come on, like, what are we going to do? So I took a few courses online about how to teach virtually. I was so used to teaching dogs, and I was not going to be able to teach the dogs anymore. I had to learn how to teach the people, and I had to learn how to teach the people without seeing them in person, without touching their dogs. So a lot of like coaching rather than training. And that's when I started to see the best results of my career. And I was completely flabbergasted. But the reason is, it's the classic idiom, you teach a man to fish, right? And that's what I started doing. Instead of just selling fish, I started teaching folks how to do it themselves. And it makes so much sense, because it's just like with kids, right? Learning's happening all the time. You can't just send them to finishing school and have them come back perfect. That's just not how animals work. You need to learn how to teach your dog the things that you want it to know, and how to maintain those behaviors over their whole life. And I found a lot of folks quite dubious at the beginning, just like I was. Ash, come on. But after a little bit of work, they were like, oh, wait a second, this actually kind of works. And people kind of got hooked a little bit, wanting to come back, wanting to learn more. And things just took off, honestly. We now have 7 trainers. We've worked with people in over 12 countries. We've managed to reach folks in places like Jakarta, Peru, India, China, like places that I never would have been able to access before. And it's been amazing teaching people and seeing them go out into the world and show off these skills. It's been fantastic and honestly surpassed my expectations. So that's kind of
yeah, it's such a fascinating construct. So basically what happens, just so I fully am grokking this, you'll speak to the owner and you'll essentially kind of outline the things that they need to be doing, and then you'll be able to witness it, you're watching it, and coach them along, correct?
Precisely. So we use like a multi-dimensional teaching platform. So we use Zoom and face-to-face consultations, either group sessions or private sessions. And in those sessions, we do a lot of data gathering and we come up with plans. We also can teach live. So we can set up cameras and do live training with the dogs in the home, in the yard, in the driveway, wherever your Wi-Fi can extend. We've even had people with cameras strapped to their chest walking around Brooklyn with us in their ears. You think it's crazy, but it works. It's really cool. And the most amazing thing is that the trainer isn't there, right? So the dog's behavior doesn't change. I know so many people who would say to me, oh, when you're here, he's perfect. But when you go away, he's a demon again. And this completely bypasses that problem and empowers the guardians. We also—
That's brilliant. I mean, I think you're absolutely spot on, because it is true. How many times any pet owner has taken their dog to a trainer and had a perfect session, and then they get home and it's right back to the same. That's excellent. I love that idea. And I can only see this need expanding. I mean, over the last couple of years, certainly we've seen the need for support from a pet perhaps greater than ever before because of difficulties with the pandemic. But I mean, generally speaking, the role that pets play in our lives seems to continue to be increasing. I mean, how do you imagine this solution evolving in the context of where things are today?
I mean, I don't think that we could have popped up at a better time. Yourself, and I'm sure you've seen how many more dogs there are in our homes and in our cities, especially. I remember when I was brought up, the idea of having a dog in London, where I grew up, was absurd. My mum would say to me, that's ridiculous. Dogs don't live in the city. And now I go down the street, there's a Czechoslovakian wolf dog that lives two doors down. It's £100. It's half wolf. It's crazy. And the need is greater than ever, I feel like, with the pandemic, with the general mental health crisis that we're experiencing globally. A return to interacting with nature, and animals are a big part of nature, has been a godsend to many of us, right? How many of us got puppies, pandemic puppies, and how many of those pandemic puppies have really struggled with the confines of the pandemic and now the opening up of the world? It's a crazy time, and people have really sought refuge in the animals, and now it's our turn to give back and make sure that they're getting what they need and that their mental health is taken care of, and not just our mental health. And I often find people say to me every single day, I learned so much about my mental health and about my relationships by learning how to interact with this animal. Or I've been applying the things I learned with my dog to my husband or my child or my colleague, because it's essentially nonviolent communication that we're teaching. It's like the most cutting edge, science-backed way of interacting with animals, very similar to responsive parenting tactics. So I just think there's a lot of intersections that are really topical and just really interesting. Like, I think it's a really interesting, place to be right now.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know how I feel about the idea of applying this to me. I don't want you to give, anybody any hints on that, but that is fascinating to hear that. And certainly it completely makes sense. And, I love the business because this is truly a company that has captured a new innovation really through the crisis of the pandemic. And I mean, just walk me through that whole experience a little bit. It's such an amazing story.
Oh God, I know. So my parents are both in IT and innovation. My mum works, she's a disabled woman. She's been in a wheelchair her whole life, and she works in medical robotics. And classic me, moved away from that. I'm going to work with animals. I don't need your technology, what all kids do, right? And I'm furious that they were right. And that innovative technology actually can be an absolute game changer. And I said at the beginning, I was reluctant. I was really reluctant. Big change is always scary. And I didn't believe anyone would believe me. that it works. You know, oh, you need to be here to see, to be able to see what's going on with my dog. What we did have to do is change a lot of the ways that our systems work, right? So before you even talk to a trainer, you are filling out forms, you're sending us videos, but we don't need to be in the home. We have learned that over the last 2 years. We don't need to be in the home. We have these incredible pieces of technology. There are some clients who have cameras hooked up in their apartment, and they can give me access to those cameras with a press of a button, and I can see exactly what's happening at any time of the day in their home. And it's just so much better than what we used to do, which is where someone would come into a training center and tell us all of their problems. Now we have this like multi-dimensional way of accessing information. There have been a lot of skills that we had to upgrade, you know, the technological skills, the software, etc., but also teaching skills and communication skills. So our trainers are multi-certified trainers, both in animal behavior, but also in therapy, coaching, like refined communication techniques that help us teach without touching. It's really something that we've had to pull from a lot of different places in order to gain the skills. So the way that we teach, we use a method called tag teach, which is how lots of folks teach surgeons, astronauts, ballerinas, gymnasts. So it's a way of teaching and a way of communication that allows us to best coach you completely hands off just by watching you through a screen. And we've really pulled from all of the different areas that we could. We looked at telemedicine, we looked at therapy, we looked at physios, and we pulled it all together and said, okay, how can we make this work for dog training? And honestly, I was hoping for almost as good results. Getting far better results was a really nice surprise. But I'm hooked now. I'm not going back. We could go back to working in person, and people ask us every day. And I always say to them, like, just trust me, just do one session. Because you're going to get more from that one session than you would do if I came and walked your dog up and down the street for you.
Yeah, I mean, I think that you nailed it when you described it right up front, that having the trainer absent, in fact, actually teaches more effectively. And that, I think, is the learning here. It's always those counterintuitive moments where you really have groundbreaking thinking. And that's what you guys have achieved. So tell me a little bit about this year, 2022 we're in. What are you guys focused on right now?
2022 is a big year for us. We have massively increased our training staff to meet the demand that we're seeing for our services. We are coaching folks, like I mentioned, in sort of it might even be over 12, like maybe 15 plus different countries around the world. We run a bunch of signature programs. So we have 2 signature programs that specialize in fear and aggression and separation anxiety. So as you can imagine, at the back of the pandemic, those are 2 issues that we're seeing quite a lot with the dog population who maybe aren't used to guests in the home or used to people leaving the home. So we teach those to folks all around the world. And we're kind of establishing ourselves now as like industry leaders in digital dog training and virtual dog training. So we're training a lot of dog trainers all around the world and showing them how we work. And very excitingly, in August, I think it's probably one of the most exciting events of my career, I've been invited as one of the keynote speakers at the Aggression in Dogs conference, which is the biggest conference globally for folks working with anxiety and aggression in this business. And I'm doing a talk all about business technology and the digital dog training revolution. And I'm trying to get everyone on board. I'm like, join me, come on, this is needed. You know, there are folks all over the world who don't have access to good trainers, and now they can access us. And that is really, really exciting.
But I mean, even people that have access to trainers, this just seems to be a superior way of doing it. It seems, you know, I mean, I'm listening to you talk. I mean, whether you live in Manhattan or Mozambique, it really should work for you, right? At least it seems to makes total sense.
The interesting thing about this industry is that it is entirely unregulated. It's kind of like a nutritionist, right? Like there's no formal regulation around who can and cannot be a dog trainer. So even folks working in Manhattan, I am often the 3rd or 4th dog trainer they've come to, having received really quite subpar services up until that point. Finally, they come to us quite desperate, saying, we tried all the in-person people and none of it got worse. And we're like, don't worry, we got you. So you're totally right. Location doesn't really matter, but it is an extra added bonus for sure.
So Karishma, I've never heard of anything like what you guys are doing at Calm Canine Academy. This seems really new and very fresh. I mean, I imagine a lot of the listeners and viewers out there don't know of anything like this. If they want to talk to you or get in touch, where should they find you?
Great question. So we are, as a digital dog training company, we are very active online. We have a great and ever expanding online community on Instagram, especially. So just at Calm Canine Academy on Instagram, not only will you find us there, so you can send us a DM if you have any questions, but you'll also find literally hundreds of hours of free content and free information. That can be live training episodes that you can see me working with my own dogs and clients' dogs, other trainers, educational graphics. I am obsessed with free information. I find that it's how I convince people that this is going to work. So go and have a look, and you can really see the value that we have in some of that content. And that's just the beginning. That's just the storefront. Once you go behind and actually work with us one-on-one, it's pretty cool. So yeah, go check that out. And we're also, you can also find us at calmcanineacademy.com. Especially recommend the resources section, where we have lots of free webinars and blogs and stuff like that. So you can get started and get your teeth sunk in.
I love it. I love it. And I really hope people reach out and talk to you soon. We've been speaking with Karishma Warr. She's the co-founder and head of training and behavior at the Calm Canine Academy, CCA, where she's offering science-backed, positive reinforcement-based training and helps people communicate with their dogs, strengthen their bond, and facilitate learning, all virtually. So this is pretty revolutionary. I want to thank Karishma, as well as I think I should probably thank Ash, wherever Ash is. Thank you, Ash, for being so patient today with me while I was talking to Karishma on Uncaged, and we look forward to having both of you back.
Thank you. Bye.
Cheers, guys.
Cheers, man. Nice to talk to you.